thought the future would be cooler. I thought the future would be cooler.
Welcome. My guests in this episode are Michael Ioffe and Ryan Laverty. They're students and entrepreneurs from Babson College in Boston, and they also get the dubious honor of being the first multi-party interview in our podcast series, Learning is the New Working. Indeed, we got to test out the limits of our recording software today and put Ringer through the ringer, so to speak. Ringer, that's RINGR.com, is the software that we use to record our remote participants, which for us is almost all of them. It's a very clever way to squeeze the very best audio quality out of an internet call, and it was especially tested here since our conversation bridged my office in Seattle with the Babson campus in Boston and with Michael in Shanghai. We had a bit of fun breaking the software, but ultimately we prevailed and succeeded in recording this interview. I hope we also succeeded in capturing the infectious energy, ruthless optimism, and focused industry of this pair of startup founders. They've just launched a platform for building and deploying minimalist training courses that use, wait for it, text messaging as its primary publishing medium. I really love the experiment that these two are running, and in a world of distraction and overabundance, you know, the one where Josh Bersin calculates that the distracted, impatient, and overwhelmed worker has less than 1% of a typical work week to devote to learning new skills, well, these guys have an elegant, simple, and now very tested solution that makes your average microlearning snippet feel like Wagner's Ring cycle. In our conversation, we talk about how they overcome the initial skepticism about the efficacy of text-based learning and have turned that into over a dozen implementations with top universities, NGOs, and enterprise customers. We learn about their incredible origin story behind a product that they bootstrapped for less than $100 just 18 months ago. And we learn about what they're learning on how to optimize the design and which approach works for this type of learning technology. We also cover their aspirations and inspirations as they stand on the cusp of launching their next version and a new go-to-market initiative that will launch in 2020. Finally, we talk about the extraordinary engagement levels that they're able to achieve and how their product forces designers to evoke the spirit of Mies van der Rohe, who, as a product of the Bauhaus School and perhaps best-known father of modernism, coined the term less is more. In that spirit, this is our shortest podcast to date. It's not in text messages, but it is packed with the energy and thoughtfulness that Michael and Ryan bring to their endeavor. There is absolutely room for their solution in your work practice. So listen up to hear what they've learned and learn how you can engage in learning that comes in a daily dose of 1,200 characters or less.
I thought the future would be cooler. I thought the future would be cooler.
So welcome to Learning is the New Working. Today I'm with Ryan and Michael, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Ryan, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Ryan. I'm currently a senior at Babson College. I'm also the COO and co-founder of Arist, which is a text message learning platform you're about to hear a lot about. And I'm currently based in Boston.
Great. And Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Arist. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Where do you live and why do you live there?
Sure thing. So I go to school at Babson College in Boston. That's actually where I met Ryan and where Arist got started. I'm from Portland, Oregon originally, and I'm currently in Shanghai, where I'm studying abroad.
Awesome. So you're on this peripatetic journey that you talked to me about earlier. Not just China, but other parts of the world as well, right?
Yes, yeah. So I spent the last 3 months in Russia, India, and China, studying a mix of architecture, business, culture, and also exploring text message learning applications while I'm here.
Man, this sounds like really hard duty. Nobody's jealous at all of that. But well done. Well done. Study abroad. That's very important. Ryan, you're back at home. You've done your own travels as well. Could you tell me a little bit about Babson and what Babson is known for as an educational institution?
Yeah, absolutely. So Babson is regarded as the top undergrad college in the country for entrepreneurship. And so mainly because they adopt a lot of models around project-based learning. So students will actually come in their freshman year and team up and all start a company together. So they'll talk to distributors and manufacturers, work on selling product, and kind of go through all the highs and lows that a business typically would. And so it's a very sort of experiential learning experience where students get to try starting a company.
And is it very multidisciplinary? Do you have scientists and business people and doers and makers as well as sellers and marketers?
Yes, so you'll typically find your analysts and your more kind of engineering minds along with your business minds and your sales minds.
Oh, really interesting. And you are a senior, did you say? So you're about to plunge into the real world?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Well, we're here to talk about this extraordinary product that you've incubated, I assume, during your time at Babson, and it's called Arist. Ryan, tell me why it's called Arist and what it does.
Sure. So it's called Arist, and Arist is actually short for Aristotle. We had just thought the name sounded interesting. And what Arist actually is a text message learning platform. And so we work with different large institutions and organizations to build their content into text message format. What that actually looks like is a text message course or text message learning is one text per day of over about 5 to 30 days. And on your phone, that's about 1,200 characters of content. So it can include assessments like multiple choice, open-ended questions, or just an overview of a concept or a case study. It's an incredibly intimate medium, so about 95% of employees will open a text message within just 3 minutes, and it employs the spaced learning model, so we see net completion rates of about 92% and similar satisfaction rates. I think one other just interesting thing to know about text message learning is that we're seeing a lot of these high completion rates just because of the behavioral implications of it. And so we're using the science that makes text messages and social media so addictive for good because you're getting that bump of content every day, so it becomes a very habitual experience in learning. And our goal is to create this incredibly and completely frictionless learning experience for end users.
Okay, frictionless. I love this. There's a lot of stuff to unpack in what you've just said there. You're landing the value proposition with me. You've really got my attention. The idea of changing behavior and teaching people through regular doses of 1,200 characters is quite interesting. Michael, could you tell me a little bit about the platform that you guys, Arist, I guess, is the platform that allows me to build and manage and deploy these courses. Can you tell me a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, sure thing. So the Arist platform is pretty simple. How it works is that for every organization that we work with, we create a dedicated Arist classroom where their employees or students can take text message courses and where learning designers and professors can build text message courses. So our goal is to make it as easy as possible to convert existing content into text message format and build a text message course. As a result, you can build a text message course typically in anywhere from 2 to 8 hours versus 50 plus hours for a typical video-based course.
You know the old adage, you probably don't know it, it's I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. The implications being conciseness and brevity are costly and take a lot of time and design. What have instructional designers learned, and how does the constraints of 1,200 characters and a daily dose help or hinder them?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the biggest thing that we see when we're going in and working with these content creators and instructional designers is that it helps them a lot to think about what would an overview or a summary of this topic look like. And so typically something that we like to think about is the content really matters a lot. And if a course isn't designed using our content standards, which have been refined over time, then they won't work. And so writers will go into too much detail. They'll try and give too much information. And it's really about what's the information the writer needs to remember most. And if you're thinking a month from now, what do you want them to remember? What are the key takeaways? That's a lot of what we'll push. And so tone matters and every character really counts. The biggest challenge we've seen with writers is that writing less is a skill that many professors and learning designers aren't accustomed to yet, and it's a completely different skill set. And so working with them to be more brief and to get to the point faster is a lot of what we'll push with our creators.
And I think there's a couple of things that really struck me when I took this course. I took a course on Mies van der Rohe, who anybody who's worked with me knows I'm obsessive about, and it was really interesting. I think it was a 5-day course, and I got my morning dose of modern architecture, which was really great, and I learned a lot. There's a couple of things that really strike me from what you've said. One is the intimacy of this. A text. In fact, just before our call, I went back to the course to refresh my memory on what I'd learned. That was an interesting experience in and of itself because it was very easy to find. So I like this idea of intimacy and immediacy around text, but I also love brevity. A lot of instructional designers are paid by the pound in terms of the volume of content they create, and this imposes a real rigor and discipline, not unlike Mies van der Rohe's philosophy around kind of less is more. See what I did there. I'm really interested. A fascinating backstory to this product. Michael, can you tell me where you got the idea from this and how Arist was born?
Sure thing. So my background is in the nonprofit space. Before starting Arist, I spent 3 years starting and running a nonprofit called Tile.org, which hosts entrepreneurship conversations in about 450 cities in 50 countries. And one of our locations was in the war zone in Yemen. And I couldn't understand why we were getting more students to come to our events in Yemen than we were getting to come to our events in New York. And what I started learning was that Yemen's educational system had been broken for about 4 years. Students were desperate for educational resources, and video-based courses just were not doing the trick, because most of Yemen still doesn't have access to high-speed internet necessary for watching a video course. So I started realizing that sort of the promise of massive online open courses and video courses as this great educational democratizer really wasn't being fulfilled. And after banging my head against the wall for 6 months trying to figure out how to deliver educational content in Yemen, I realized that text messages were the world's most widespread communication medium. And if we could figure out a way to deliver educational content in text message format, we could teach students in Yemen and teach students all over the world who may not have access to high internet speeds. So yeah, that's how the idea got started. We piloted a text message course we designed with Babson and USC, and started realizing that along with being extremely accessible, text message courses are also extremely effective. And we sort of went from there.
I've had some other experiences with people using very sort of text-based learning in situations where there's no infrastructure and there's no bandwidth, but the sense of urgency is there. And I love the sort of pull that you described from your audience in the Yemen, who were just hungry for knowledge and were the least friction that you could come up with, the better. It's a great sort of origin story for the product. I also know that you've deployed it in some more traditional corporate settings as well, and I'm interested to learn what kind of use cases you found 1,200 character training courses have found in the corporate world.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I think it's been interesting. You asked Ryan earlier what the response from learning designers was, and I think so far the response from learning designers has been very similar to the response from most CLOs and most educational leaders. Which is being really, really surprised by how much you can fit into a text message course. So we started realizing that, as I mentioned, that text message courses were extremely effective with ridiculously high completion rates and engagement rates because we were meeting employees where they were at. And so far, we to use Arist for a variety of use cases. So a major healthcare company recently just piloted an HR analytics course that was really, really successful. And we were able to condense a 3-hour lecture into 6 texts. And then a major staff training firm which is crazy. And then a major staff training firm just finished piloting a 10-day front-end development course, which is not a course that you would imagine could be done over text, but it was really successful. They were able to condense, I think, 2 days worth of in-class lecture time into about 10 texts, which is crazy. We've had a lot of success boiling down really, really complicated and important concepts into a series of texts and delivering it in a way that employees really, really like.
So that getting to the essence of the information is really key, and I think one of the interesting aspects of this. Have you had any evidence of behavior change beyond completion and consumption? Do you have any read on the efficacy of this form of learning?
Sure. Yeah. So that's something that we're still doing a lot of research about. Arist launched our platform just a few months ago, so a lot of the longer term implications are still being studied. We this summer we piloted a mindfulness course with a major healthcare organization in Boston and a major HR training agency in Boston. And just a few months out, it was a 30-day mindfulness course, and just a few months out, we had employees telling us that the course changed their life. And had a really, really dramatic impact on their mental well-being. Mainly because instead of most mindfulness apps, you have to log into every single day, and here the content was pushed to them, and it was really, really easy and digestible. And I think that made doing something really, really like being mindful just that much easier.
Ryan, can you talk a little bit about the business model? What are you thinking in terms of how you're going to make a living out of Arist, and how can people engage today?
Yeah, absolutely. And so right on our website,